Mary's day began disastrously. She woke up to the sound of howling wind and pouring rain outside her apartment window. Groaning, she reached for her phone to check the time, but the screen remained dark. She tried turning on the bedside lamp, but nothing happened. "Great, a power outage," she muttered, rubbing her eyes. Stumbling through her dark apartment, she fumbled for her flashlight. Once she found it, she made her way to the bathroom. The absence of light made everything seem eerie, and she nearly tripped over her suitcase, which she had carelessly left in the hallway the night before. "Ouch. Perfect start to a perfect day," she grumbled, clutching her toe. Mary's carefully planned morning routine was thrown into chaos. With no power, she couldn't use her coffee maker, hairdryer or iron. She had an important presentation at the art exhibition that day, and she needed to look her best. "No coffee, no internet, no hairdryer, ... What else can go wrong?" she said to herself, pulling her hair into a messy bun. Determined to salvage what she could of the morning, Mary decided to make do. She put on the outfit she had laid out the night before, a crisp white blouse and light grey pants. In the dim light, she couldn't see the small coffee stain on the sleeve. She grabbed her bag, threw in her essentials and headed for the door. Just as she was about to leave, she realized she had forgotten her umbrella. "Are you kidding me?" she groaned, looking at the torrential downpour outside. With no time to spare, she dashed out of her apartment and into the rain. By the time she reached the metro station, she was completely soaked. Her hair clung to her face and neck, and her clothes were plastered to her body. "Ugh, I look like a drowned rat," she thought, shaking water off her arms. Once inside the metro, she spotted a small convenience store. She rushed in, hoping to find something to fix her appearance. To her relief, she found a gel that promised a stylish wet hair look. "This will have to do," she said, grabbing the gel and heading to the restroom. In the tiny, crowded restroom, she applied the gel, transforming her drenched hair into a deliberate, fashionable style. She stared at herself in the mirror, trying to muster some confidence. "You got this, Mary. It's just one bad morning. The day can still turn around," she whispered to her reflection. Feeling slightly better, she made her way to the exhibition venue. Just as she stepped out of the metro, the skies opened up again, soaking her all over. She sprinted the last few blocks, arriving at the venue with her hair and clothes drenched once more. "Of course," she sighed, pushing open the heavy glass door. Mary was greeted by the warm, dry air of the exhibition hall. She quickly made her way to the restroom to assess the damage and figure out her next steps. "Here we go again," she said to herself, mentally preparing for the challenges ahead. Mary stood in the restroom, dripping water onto the floor. She took a deep breath and looked at herself in the mirror. Her hair was a mess, her clothes were soaked, and she had an important presentation in less than an hour. "All right, Mary," she muttered, rummaging through her bag. "You've got to pull it together." She pulled out the gel she had bought at the metro station. It promised a stylish wet hair look, but she had never tried anything like it before. With no other options, she decided to go for it. "Here goes nothing," she said, squeezing a generous amount of gel into her hand and running it through her hair. As she worked the gel in, the restroom door opened, and a woman in a chic red dress walked in. She gave Mary a once-over, her perfectly arched eyebrows lifting in surprise. "Rough morning?" the woman asked, her tone a mix of curiosity and sympathy. You could say that Mary replied with a small, embarrassed laugh. "Power's out, I forgot my umbrella, and now I'm here looking like a drowned rat." The woman smiled, pulling a lipstick from her purse. "Well, you're making the best of it. I like the hair. It's very avant-garde." "Thanks," Mary said, feeling a bit more confident. "I'm Mary, by the way." "Lisa," the woman replied, applying her lipstick with precision. "Nice to meet you, Mary." As Lisa left, Mary focused on her hair, shaping it into something that looked intentionally styled rather than simply wet. She added a bit more gel, scrunching her curls to give them definition. "Not bad," she said to her reflection. "Not bad at all." Next, she looked down at her clothes. Her white blouse was sticking to her skin, and her light grey pants had darkened with water. She sighed and unbuttoned her blouse, hoping to dry it under the hand dryer. As she did, the restroom door swung open again, and in walked the same stylish blonde woman from earlier. "Oh, it's you again," the blonde said, her eyes widening as she saw Mary in her bra, having a bit of a wardrobe malfunction. "Something like that," Mary replied, feeling her cheeks flush. "I was just trying to dry off a bit." The blonde woman chuckled. "You're really having a day, huh? Here, let me help." She grabbed some paper towels and handed them to Mary. "Use these. It might be quicker." "Thanks," Mary said, gratefully taking the towels and dabbing at her blouse. "I'm supposed to give a presentation soon. I can't believe this is happening." "Hey, don't worry," the woman said, giving Mary an encouraging smile. "You'll do great. Just own it. Besides, you look pretty good considering the circumstances." Mary managed to smile. "Thanks. I appreciate it." The woman nodded and left the restroom, leaving Mary alone again. She took a deep breath, feeling a bit better after the brief exchange. She dried her blouse as best as she could and then focused on her pants. They were still wet, and she knew she had to do something about it. With a determined sigh, she pulled her pants off and held them under the hand dryer. As she stood there in her underwear, the restroom door opened yet again, and Lisa walked back in. "Wow, you're really committed," Lisa said, laughing. Mary couldn't help but laugh too. Yeah, desperate times call for desperate measures. Lisa nodded approvingly. "You're handling this like a pro. You'll be fine, trust me." Mary finally got her pants dry enough to wear and put them back on. She took one last look in the mirror, applied a bit of lipstick, and smiled at her reflection. "You got this," she whispered to herself, feeling a renewed sense of determination. As she walked out of the restroom, she felt a wave of confidence wash over her. Despite the disastrous start to her day, she was ready to face whatever came next. Mary stood in the restroom, feeling a mix of determination and frustration. She had managed to fix her hair into a stylish, wet look and dry her blouse as best as she could. Now, she had to deal with her soaked pants. She took a deep breath and pulled them off, holding them under the hand dryer. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, watching the dryer blow hot air on her pants. "How did my day turn into this mess?" Just then, the restroom door swung open, and the stylish blonde woman from earlier walked in. Mary froze, pants in hand, as the woman stopped short and raised an eyebrow. "Well, this is a first," the blonde said, her lips curling into a smirk. "Need some help?" Mary felt her face turn bright red. No, I'm just trying to dry my pants." The woman laughed, a light, melodic sound that somehow made Mary feel less embarrassed. "I'm Mia," she said, extending a hand. "And you must be the most resourceful person I've met today." "Mary," she replied, shaking Mia's hand awkwardly with one hand while holding her pants with the other. "Nice to meet you." Mia glanced at the hand dryer. "You know, there's a quicker way to do this." She grabbed a bunch of paper towels and handed them to Mary. "Here, use these. It might be faster." Mary gratefully took the towels and started blotting her pants. "Thanks. This day has been a complete disaster." Mia leaned against the sink, watching Mary with amusement. "You seem to be handling it pretty well. Most people would have given up by now." "Yeah, well, I don't really have a choice," Mary said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "I've got a presentation in less than an hour." Mia nodded thoughtfully. "What's the presentation about?" "It's about Russian icons and their restoration," Mary replied, wringing out her pants one last time before putting them back on. "It's kind of my thing." "That sounds fascinating," Mia said, genuinely interested. "I'm sure you'll do great." "Thanks," Mary said, feeling a bit more confident. "I just need to get through today." Mia smiled. "You'll be fine. Just remember, everyone has bad days. It's how you handle them that counts." As Mary finished adjusting her pants, she noticed that her underwear lines were still visible. She groaned inwardly. Great, just what I needed. Mia seemed to read her mind. If it's any consolation, no one will be looking at your pants. They'll be too busy listening to what you have to say. Mary laughed. I hope you're right. With one last look in the mirror, she straightened her blouse and gathered her belongings. Thanks for the help, Mia. I really appreciate it. Any time, Mia said, giving her a thumbs up. Good luck, Mary. Knock him dead. Mary left the restroom, feeling a strange mix of anxiety and resolve. She had faced more challenges this morning than she had in a long time, but she was still standing. She was ready to face whatever came next. As she walked toward the exhibition hall, she couldn't help but think about Mia's words. It was true, bad days happen to everyone. It was how you handled them that made the difference. All right, Mary, she whispered to herself. You got this. Time to shine. With renewed determination, she stepped into the exhibition hall, ready to turn her disastrous day around. Mary stepped into the bustling exhibition hall, feeling the energy of the room hit her like a wave. Art enthusiasts, journalists, and potential sponsors filled the space, all engaged in animated conversations. She took a deep breath, reminding herself why she was here. Okay, Mary. You've got this, she whispered, clutching her notes. Just focus on the art. She began walking toward the stage, weaving through the crowd. People glanced at her, and she felt a pang of self-consciousness about her damp clothes, but she kept her head high. Mary. There you are, called a familiar voice. She turned to see her colleague, Sarah, rushing over. We were starting to worry. Are you okay? I'm fine. Just a bit of a rough morning, Mary replied with a small smile. But I'm ready. Sarah nodded, looking relieved. Good. You're up in 10 minutes. The sponsors are really looking forward to your presentation. This could be big for us. No pressure, right? Mary joked, trying to lighten the mood. You'll do great, Sarah said, giving her a reassuring pat on the back. Break a leg. Mary walked toward the podium, her heart pounding. She glanced at the audience and saw Grayson standing near the back. Her stomach churned at the sight of him. She hadn't seen him since the breakup, and the memories came flooding back. Not now, Mary, she whispered to herself, shaking her head. Focus. As she approached the podium, the gallery director, Mr. Novak, greeted her with a warm smile. Mary, so glad you made it. Ready to dazzle them? Absolutely, Mr. Novak, she replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Mr. Novak turned to the audience and clapped his hands for attention. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Mary Thompson, who will be presenting on the fascinating world of Russian icon restoration. Please give her a warm welcome. The audience applauded as Mary stepped up to the podium. She took a deep breath and began. Good morning, everyone. Today, I am thrilled to share with you the intricate and beautiful art of Russian icon restoration. These works of art are not only historical treasures but also windows into the past, revealing the rich cultural heritage of Russia. As she spoke, Mary felt her nerves start to settle. She had practiced this presentation countless times, and the words flowed naturally. She clicked through her slides, showing before and after photos of restored icons, explaining the painstaking process involved. The restoration process requires a delicate balance of preserving the original work while making necessary repairs. It's a labor of love, and each piece tells a story. She glanced at the audience and saw nods of approval. Encouraged, she continued with more enthusiasm. One of the most rewarding aspects of this work is seeing a piece come back to life. It's almost as if the icon itself is speaking to us, telling us its history and the hands that crafted it. Mary's passion for her work shone through, and she noticed people leaning in, captivated by her words. She was hitting her stride, and the earlier chaos of the day seemed like a distant memory. Just as she was wrapping up, she saw Grayson move closer to the front. Her heart skipped a beat, but she kept her focus. In conclusion, the art of icon restoration is not just about preserving the past, but also about connecting with it. It's about understanding the cultural and spiritual significance of these works and ensuring they continue to inspire future generations. The audience erupted into applause, and Mary felt a rush of relief and pride. She had done it. As she stepped down from the podium, Mr. Novak shook her hand. "Excellent job, Mary. You were fantastic." "Thank you, Mr. Novak," she said, beaming. Sarah rushed over, her eyes wide with excitement. "Mary, that was amazing. The sponsors are impressed. This could really boost our funding." Mary smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "I'm just glad it went well." "Hey, Mary," a voice called from behind. She turned to see Grayson standing there, a hesitant smile on his face. "That was a great presentation." Mary's smile faltered, but she kept her composure. "Thanks, Grayson." "Can we talk?" he asked, his tone serious. "Not now," she replied, her voice steady. "I've got a lot to take care of." Grayson looked disappointed but nodded. "Sure. Another time, then." Mary watched him walk away, a mixture of emotions swirling inside her. She had faced her past and succeeded despite it. Now, she was ready to move forward, stronger and more confident than ever. "All right," she said to herself, taking a deep breath. "On to the next challenge." Mary leaned against a pillar in the exhibition hall, taking a moment to gather her thoughts after the presentation. The applause was still ringing in her ears, but so were the echoes of her past. Seeing Grayson had stirred up memories she had tried hard to bury. She closed her eyes, letting the sounds of the bustling hall fade into the background as she drifted back to the first time she met Grayson. It was a crisp winter afternoon, and Mary was at the ice rink with her best friend Mia. They had decided to take advantage of one of the last weekends of the season. Mary was gliding effortlessly across the ice, the cold air refreshing against her cheeks, while Mia stayed closer to the edge, practicing her balance. "Come on, Mia. You can do it," Mary called out, laughing as she spun in a graceful circle. "I'm trying, Mary. Not all of us are ice princesses," Mia shot back, wobbling but managing a smile. As Mary skated backwards, she suddenly collided with a solid figure. They both went down in a tangle of limbs and laughter. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," Mary exclaimed, looking up to see a pair of light grey eyes staring down at her with a mix of surprise and amusement. "No harm done," the young man said, offering her a hand. "I wasn't looking where I was going." "Neither was I," Mary admitted, taking his hand and standing up. "I'm Mary." "Grayson," he replied, smiling. "And this is my friend Max." Max skated over, laughing. "Smooth move, Grayson." "You okay, Mary?" "Yeah, I'm fine. Nice to meet you both," she said, feeling a blush creep up her cheeks. They spent the rest of the afternoon skating together, laughing and showing off their best moves. By the end of the day, they had exchanged numbers and made plans to hang out again. Back in the present, Mary opened her eyes, the memory fading but leaving a bittersweet taste. She sighed and took a sip of water, trying to shake off the lingering sadness. A few months after their first meeting, Mary and Grayson had become inseparable. They explored the city together, discovering new cafes, hidden parks, and art galleries. One evening, they found themselves at a small, cozy restaurant, sharing a quiet dinner. "Do you ever think about the future?" Grayson asked, looking at her thoughtfully over his glass of wine. "All the time," Mary replied with a smile. "I have so many dreams, but sometimes it's hard to see how they'll come true." Grayson reached across the table and took her hand. "We'll figure it out together. Whatever you want to do, I'll be there to support you." Mary's heart swelled with affection. "I feel the same way about you, Grayson. I can't imagine my life without you." Mary snapped back to reality, the weight of those words hitting her like a punch. She had truly believed in their future together. But everything had changed on that fateful day. It was the day before Grayson's final exams, and Mary had planned to surprise him with a special dinner to celebrate the end of his grueling study sessions. She had texted him earlier, but he hadn't replied, so she decided to drop by his apartment. As she walked up the familiar steps, she couldn't shake the feeling of excitement and nervousness. She knocked on the door, but there was no answer. Frowning, she tried the handle, and to her surprise it was unlocked. "Grayson," she called out, stepping inside. The apartment was eerily quiet. She made her way to the bedroom, her heart pounding. When she pushed open the door, she saw them, Grayson and Mia, tangled together in bed, fast asleep. Mary's world shattered in an instant. She stood frozen, her breath caught in her throat. The betrayal cut deep, and she felt like she couldn't breathe. She backed out of the room, her mind racing. Without a word, she turned and left, the pain and anger bubbling up inside her. Mary took another deep breath, trying to steady herself. Seeing Grayson today had reopened old wounds, but she refused to let it derail her. She had come a long way since that day. "Mary, are you okay?" Sarah's voice broke through her thoughts, bringing her back to the present. "Yeah," Mary said, forcing a smile. "Just got lost in my thoughts for a minute." "Well, you were amazing up there," Sarah said, giving her a supportive squeeze on the shoulder. "Everyone loved your presentation." "Thanks, Sarah. I needed that," Mary replied, genuinely grateful for her friend's support. As she looked around the exhibition hall, Mary felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had faced her past and come out stronger. The future was hers to shape, and she was ready to embrace it. With one last glance in Grayson's direction, she turned away, focusing on the opportunities ahead. Mary had planned everything meticulously. She wanted to surprise Grayson with a special dinner to celebrate the end of his exams. She had cooked his favorite meal, and even bought a bottle of his favorite wine. As she packed everything into a basket, she felt a flutter of excitement and nervousness. "I can't wait to see the look on his face," she murmured to herself, smiling. She sent him a quick text, "Hey, I'm coming over with a surprise. See you soon." No reply. She shrugged it off, assuming he was busy studying. With the basket in hand, she left her apartment and walked the familiar route to Grayson's place. As she approached his building, a light drizzle began to fall, but it didn't dampen her spirits. She practically skipped up the stairs, her mind filled with thoughts of their future together. She imagined their cozy dinner, the way he'd smile at her, the plans they'd make for the summer. When she reached his door, she knocked softly, then waited. No answer. She knocked again, louder this time. "Grayson?" "It's me, Mary." Still no response. Her excitement turned to worry. She tried the door handle, and to her surprise it was unlocked. "That's odd," she thought, pushing the door open. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. She set the basket down on the kitchen counter and walked through the living room, her heart pounding. As she approached the bedroom, she noticed the door was slightly ajar. "Grayson," she called out, her voice trembling. She pushed the door open, and her heart stopped. There, in the bed, were Grayson and Mia, tangled together under the sheets. They were asleep, oblivious to her presence. The room seemed to spin around her, and she felt like she couldn't breathe. "Mia." "Grayson," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Grayson stirred, his eyes fluttering open. When he saw Mary standing in the doorway, his face turned pale. "Mary, wait, it's not what it looks like," he stammered, sitting up and pulling the sheets around him. Mia woke up, looking just as shocked. "Mary, please let me explain," she pleaded, her voice shaking. Mary felt a surge of anger and betrayal. "Explain? What is there to explain?" she spat, her voice rising. "I trusted you both. How could you do this to me?" Grayson scrambled out of bed, trying to reach for her. "Mary, please, just let me talk to you." "Don't touch me," she screamed, stepping back. "I can't believe this. I thought you loved me, Grayson. And you, Mia, you were my best friend." Tears streamed down her face as she turned and ran out of the apartment, ignoring their desperate calls. She stumbled down the stairs, her vision blurred by tears, and burst out into the rainy street. The cold rain mingled with her hot tears, and she felt like her heart had been ripped out of her chest. She found a quiet spot in a nearby park and collapsed onto a bench, sobbing uncontrollably. The rain continued to pour down, but she didn't care. She felt like her entire world had shattered into a million pieces. Why? Why did this happen? She cried, burying her face in her hands. As the rain finally began to let up, Mary felt a strange sense of clarity. She knew she couldn't stay here, drowning in her sorrow. She needed to move forward, to find a way to heal from this betrayal. Summoning all her strength, she stood up and walked back to her apartment. She couldn't bear to see Grayson or Mia again, so she decided to pack her things and leave. She needed a fresh start, far away from the pain and memories. She called a taxi and threw her belongings into a suitcase. As she waited for the taxi to arrive, she left a note on the kitchen counter, "Don't try to find me. I'm done. Goodbye." The taxi arrived and Mary climbed in, her heart heavy but her resolve strong. As she drove away, she looked back one last time, letting the tears fall freely. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to rebuild her life, one step at a time. Back in the present, Mary took a deep breath, shaking off the painful memory. She had come a long way since that day, and she was proud of the person she had become. She glanced around the exhibition hall, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "Mary, are you okay?" Sarah's voice broke through her thoughts. "Yeah," Mary said, forcing a smile. "I'm okay, just thinking about how far I've come." Sarah nodded, understanding. "You've been through a lot, but look at you now. You're amazing." "Thanks, Sarah. I needed that," Mary replied, genuinely grateful. With a final glance around the hall, Mary felt a sense of closure. She had faced her past, and now she was ready to move forward. The future was hers to shape, and she was more than ready to embrace it. Mary stood on the train platform, the chill of the early morning air biting through her jacket. She had left everything behind: her apartment, her job, and the city that held so many memories. With a deep breath, she boarded the train bound for her hometown, hoping the journey would help heal her broken heart. As the train pulled out of the station, Mary settled into her seat by the window. She watched the cityscape fade into the distance, replaced by sprawling fields and forests. The rhythmic clatter of the train on the tracks was oddly soothing, and she found herself lost in thought. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" A voice interrupted her reverie. She looked up to see an older woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. "No, it's free," Mary replied, scooting over to make room. "Thank you," the woman said, sitting down and placing her bag on the floor. "I'm Ellen. Nice to meet you." "Mary," she said, returning the smile. "Nice to meet you too." Ellen glanced at Mary's suitcase and then back at her. "Heading somewhere special?" "Just going home," Mary replied. "It's been a rough few months, and I need a break." Ellen nodded understandingly. Sometimes going home is the best medicine. Mary and Ellen chatted for a while, sharing stories about their lives. Ellen talked about her grandchildren and her garden, while Mary spoke about her work as a restorer and the challenges she had faced recently. "You know," Mary Ellen said thoughtfully, "it sounds like you're stronger than you realize. It takes a lot of courage to start over." Mary smiled, feeling a bit lighter. "Thank you, Ellen. I hope you're right." The train ride passed quickly with Ellen's company. When they arrived at Mary's stop, Ellen gave her a warm hug. "Take care of yourself, Mary. And remember, every end is a new beginning." "Thanks, Ellen," Mary said, her heart warmed by the kindness of a stranger. "I'll remember that." Mary stepped off the train and took a deep breath of the familiar air. Her hometown had always been a place of comfort, and she hoped it would be the same now. She spotted her parents waiting for her on the platform, their faces lighting up with joy as they saw her. "Mary, welcome home," her mother, Linda, exclaimed, enveloping her in a tight hug. "It's so good to see you, sweetheart," her father, Tom, said, joining the embrace. "I missed you guys so much," Mary said, feeling a wave of relief wash over her. On the drive home, Mary looked out the window, taking in the familiar sights of her childhood. The small town had a slow, peaceful rhythm that was a stark contrast to the bustling city she had left behind. When they arrived at her parents' house, Mary felt a rush of nostalgia. The house looked just as it had when she was a child, with its white picket fence and flower-filled garden. Inside, the comforting smell of her mother's cooking filled the air. "Why don't you get settled in your old room? And then we can have some lunch," Linda suggested. "That sounds perfect," Mary replied, carrying her suitcase up the stairs to her room. The room was just as she remembered it, cozy and filled with memories. She sat on the edge of her bed, looking around at the photos and trinkets from her childhood. It felt like a safe haven, a place where she could start to heal. Over the next few weeks, Mary found solace in the simple routines of home. She helped her mother in the garden, cooked meals with her father, and took long walks through the town. Each day she felt a little stronger, the pain of betrayal slowly fading into the background. One afternoon, as she was sitting on the porch with her parents, her mother turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "Mary, have you thought about what you want to do next?" Mary nodded. "I've been thinking about it a lot. I love restoring art, but I think I want to do something more with it. Maybe start my own studio or teach others." "That sounds like a wonderful idea," Tom said, his eyes filled with pride. "You've always had a gift, Mary. It's time to share it with the world." Mary smiled, feeling a new sense of purpose. "I think you're right. I want to create something that's truly mine." As the sun set over the town, Mary felt a deep sense of peace. She had come home to heal, and now she was ready to start a new chapter in her life. With the support of her family and the strength she had found within herself, she knew she could face whatever the future held. "Here's to new beginnings," she said softly, looking out at the horizon. "To new beginnings," her parents echoed, raising their glasses. Together, they watched the sun dip below the horizon, the promise of a brighter tomorrow lighting up the sky. Mary woke up to the sound of birds chirping outside her window. The sun was shining, casting a warm glow over her childhood bedroom. She stretched and took a deep breath, feeling more at peace than she had in months. Today was the day she would start putting her plans into action. Downstairs, she found her parents in the kitchen. Her mother was flipping pancakes while her father read the newspaper. "Good morning," sleepyhead Linda said with a smile. "Pancakes are almost ready." "Morning," Mary replied, grabbing a mug and pouring herself some coffee. "They smell amazing." Tom looked up from his paper. "So what's on the agenda for today, Mary?" Mary took a sip of her coffee and sat down at the table. "I was thinking about checking out some studio spaces in town. If I'm going to start my own restoration business, I need a place to work." "That's a great idea," Linda said, setting a plate of pancakes in front of her. "And don't forget, Mrs. Collins from the Historical Society called yesterday. She heard you were back in town and wanted to see if you could help with a project." Really, Mary's eyes lit up. "That sounds perfect. I'll give her a call after breakfast." After finishing her pancakes and thanking her parents, Mary headed out to explore potential studio spaces. The first few places she visited were either too small or too expensive, but she kept searching, determined to find the right spot. In the afternoon, she stopped by the local historical society to meet Mrs. Collins. The building was a charming old house filled with antiques and historical artifacts. "Mary, it's so good to see you," Mrs. Collins exclaimed, giving her a warm hug. "I can't tell you how excited we are to have you back in town." "Thank you, Mrs. Collins. It's good to be back," Mary replied, feeling genuinely happy to see her. "I heard you're looking to start your own restoration business, Mrs. Ease," Collins said, leading Mary to a small office. "We could really use your expertise on a few projects we have lined up." "I'd love to help," Mary said, her excitement growing. "What do you need done?" Mrs. Collins handed her a folder filled with photos and descriptions of various artifacts that needed restoration. We've got a few old paintings, some furniture, and a couple of historical documents that could use your magic touch. Mary flipped through the folder, feeling a sense of purpose and excitement. This is exactly what I was hoping for. Thank you, Mrs. Collins. Thank you, Mary. We're so lucky to have someone with your talent in our community. After leaving the Historical Society, Mary continued her search for a studio. Just as she was about to give up for the day, she spotted a small, vacant storefront with a for rent sign in the window. It was quaint, with large windows that let in plenty of natural light. She could already picture herself working there. Mary called the number on the sign and arranged to meet the landlord. When she walked through the door, she knew it was perfect. The space was just the right size, and the rent was affordable. This is it, she thought, feeling a surge of excitement. This is where I'll start my new journey. Over the next few weeks, Mary worked tirelessly to set up her studio. Her parents helped with the renovations, and soon the space was transformed into a beautiful, functional workshop. She hung some of her own restored pieces on the walls and set up her tools and supplies. On opening day, Mary's parents, friends, and a few people from the community gathered to support her. Mrs. Collins even brought a few items for her to start working on. Congratulations, Mary Tom said, giving her a hug. We're so proud of you. Thanks, Dad, Mary replied, feeling tears of happiness well up in her eyes. I couldn't have done it without you and Mum. Linda hugged her next. We always knew you'd do something amazing. As the guests mingled and admired her work, Mary felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had turned her pain into something beautiful and was ready to embrace the future with open arms. Later that evening, after everyone had left, Mary sat alone in her new studio, reflecting on her journey. She pulled out her sketchbook and began to draw, letting her thoughts flow onto the paper. A soft knock on the door interrupted her. She looked up to see Mia standing there, looking nervous. Hey, Mary, Mia said quietly. Can we talk? Mary felt a mix of emotions but nodded. Sure, come in. Mia stepped inside, looking around at the studio. This place is amazing. You've done a great job. Thanks, Mary said, closing her sketchbook. What's up? I just wanted to apologize, Mia said, tears welling up in her eyes. I know I hurt you, and I've regretted it every day since. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted you to know how sorry I am. Mary took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past lift slightly. Mia, I appreciate your apology. What happened hurt me deeply, but I've moved on. I've found something new to focus on, something that makes me happy. Mia nodded, wiping her tears. I'm glad to hear that. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Thank you, Mary said, offering a small smile. I hope you find your own happiness too. Mia nodded and left, leaving Mary alone again. She felt a sense of closure and peace. She had faced her past, embraced her present, and was ready for whatever the future held. With a contented sigh, Mary returned to her sketchbook, the future looking brighter than ever. She was ready to move forward, armed with the lessons of her past and the strength she had found within herself. And as she sketched, she knew that this was just the beginning of a new and exciting chapter in her life. A year had passed since Mary opened her studio. The small space had become a bustling hub of creativity and restoration. Her reputation had grown, and she was now working on projects from all over the region. Life had taken on a new, fulfilling rhythm. One sunny afternoon, Mary was carefully restoring an old painting when the bell above her studio door jingled. She looked up to see a familiar face, Mrs. Collins from the Historical Society. Good afternoon, Mary, Mrs. Collins said, stepping inside. I brought you something special. Mary smiled and wiped her hands on a cloth. Hello, Mrs. Collins. What do you have for me today? Mrs. Collins carefully unwrapped a small, intricately carved wooden box. This is a family heirloom from the 1800s. It's been in my family for generations. but it's seen better days. Mary examined the box, her eyes lighting up with excitement. This is beautiful. I'd be honored to restore it for you. As she set to work, Mrs. Collins sat down and watched. You know, Mary, you've come a long way. I remember when you first returned to town. You were so lost, but look at you now. Mary paused, reflecting on the past year. It's been quite a journey, she admitted, but I've learned so much about myself and what I'm capable of. You've shown incredible resilience, Mrs. Collins said warmly. Not everyone can turn their pain into something so positive. Mary nodded, feeling a deep sense of pride. It wasn't easy, but I realized that I had a choice. I could let the past define me, or I could use it to fuel my future. Mrs. Collins smiled. And you chose the latter. It's truly inspiring. Later that evening, after Mrs. Collins left, Mary took a moment to reflect on her journey. She thought about the difficult days, the tears, and the moments of doubt. But she also remembered the support of her family, the kindness of strangers like Ellen, and the sense of accomplishment she felt with each restored piece. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. She opened it to find Sarah, her colleague and friend, standing there with a bottle of wine. Thought you could use a break, Sarah said with a grin. Mind if I join you? Not at all, Mary replied, stepping aside to let Sarah in. I could use the company. They sat down at the small table in the corner of the studio, pouring glasses of wine and chatting about their latest projects. As the evening wore on, their conversation turned to the past year. You know, Mary, Sarah said thoughtfully, you've taught me a lot about resilience. Watching you pick yourself up and build this amazing studio has been incredible. Mary smiled, feeling grateful for her friend. Thank you, Sarah. It means a lot to hear that. Do you ever think about what you went through with Grayson and Mia? Sarah asked gently. Mary nodded. Sometimes. It was a painful chapter, but it taught me important lessons. I learned to value myself and to never let anyone else define my worth. Sarah raised her glass. To resilience and new beginnings. To resilience and new beginnings, Mary echoed, clinking her glass with Sarah's. As the night grew darker, Mary felt a deep sense of contentment. She had faced her past and emerged stronger. She had built a new life, one filled with purpose and joy. The pain of betrayal had transformed into a source of strength, driving her to achieve her dreams. The next day, as she opened her studio, she felt a surge of excitement for the future. Each day was a new opportunity to create, to restore, and to inspire others with her work. In the following months, Mary's studio continued to thrive. She took on larger projects, collaborated with other artists, and even started offering workshops to teach others the art of restoration. Her story spread, and people admired her resilience and determination. One afternoon, while teaching a workshop, a young woman approached her. Mary, I've heard your story, she said, her voice filled with admiration. You've inspired me to pursue my passion for art restoration. Mary smiled, her heart swelling with pride. Thank you. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that our greatest challenges can become our greatest strengths. Keep pushing forward, no matter what. As she watched the young woman work, Mary realized that her journey was far from over. She had found her purpose and was helping others find theirs. The power of resilience had not only transformed her life, but was now rippling out to touch the lives of others. Mary stood in her studio, surrounded by the beauty of restored art and the promise of new beginnings. She knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she had the strength and resilience to overcome them. Her story was a testament to the power of the human spirit, a story of hope, perseverance, and the unwavering belief in a brighter future. And so Mary continued to move forward, embracing each day with courage and grace, knowing that the best was yet to come. Let us know in the comments how this story has inspired you, or share your own experiences of overcoming adversity. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heart-touching stories like this one. Hit the bell icon to stay updated with our latest uploads. Your journey through the complexities of the human heart starts now. Remember, your story isn't over yet. It's just a new chapter beginning. Stay strong, stay inspired.